It's American Gun Chick and it's Gun Day Monday. Alright guys, so today I'm out at the range and I have something really special with me today. So I have my AR-15 right here, and I also have this virtual shot hooked up to my AR right here with the phone, and I have the app, and I'll show you how that works in a second. But I also have my Mantis Blackbeard right here. This is very, very helpful with this tool because every time I press the trigger, I don't have to pull back the charging handle and just to reset my trigger. This automatically will reset my trigger for me. So this is a special tool when you're training. I love the Blackbeard. Shout out to them. Anyway, the virtual shot right here is a fun game that I've showed on my channel before and I've played before. They have all kinds of fun games you can play, but they also have a training center that you can go on. So one of the perks with the virtual shot is if you have a newbie or someone that's brand new to the range, before you go to the range, you can invite them over to your house and you can give them the virtual shot and they can go through the steps, practice and learn and get comfortable and ready for the range. All right, so let's get this thing set up and we'll take a look at step number 1. Lesson 1, stable firing position. All right, so I'm going through the first lesson. I got my friendly helper here, Colt. He's gonna instruct me, make sure I'm doing good. So let's press play and let's go through it.
Hi guys, I'm Simon from Virtual Shot. What we're gonna go through are the fundamentals of shooting. There's 3 main principles in shooting, and that is building a stable firing position, naturally aligning the weapon with the target, and also trigger manipulation. In this lesson, what we're going to talk about is building that stable firing position. Now for me, I like to build the position from the feet, moving up through the body to the weapon. So we'll start with the legs. As we look back here, you can see I have my legs in the splayed position. The alternative to this is having your master leg, so if I'm a right-handed firer, brought up on a 45-degree angle and bent at approximately 90 degrees at the knee. Either of these positions are fine, and it's really the shooter's choice of what's comfortable and what you can consistently fire from. For me, the splayed leg position is comfortable for me, so that's what I'll use throughout this video. What we'll now move to is picking up the weapon and talking about our points of contact on the weapon itself. So as we take the weapon up, maintain positive control and ensure our finger is outside that trigger guard. For our 4 points of contact, we've got 1, which is the non-master hand on the foregrip of the weapon. 2, being our master hand here around the pistol grip of the weapon. 3, having that butt of the rifle in your shoulder, between the muscle of your shoulder and also just under the collarbone in a small pocket there where it comfortably sits. And finally, 4th is our cheek on the stock of the rifle called the cheek weld. The important thing to note here is that once we adopt this position, all the pressure of the rifle and the weight of the rifle should be managed by our foregrip, having the rifle on the shoulder, and also can be assisted with our cheek, leaving our master hand here free to conduct those fine motor skills that we need to operate that trigger. So this is built a prone, unsupported position, and that's the one that we're going to start off with. So if you click that button down on the right and practice the skill, we'll come back and we'll go on to the next lesson.
Lesson 2, natural alignment.
Hey guys, welcome back. We've just spoken about building a stable firing position. What we're going to go on with now is naturally aligning the weapon with the target. So we'll take the weapon up into the shoulder, maintaining those 4 points of contact, and our leg either is splayed or the master leg cocked up at 90 degrees. So the main part about aligning the weapon to the target is avoiding muscling the weapon. This is a common mistake that's often made where people are forcing the weapon to face at the target. What we want to do is actually mould our body around the weapon as it points at the target. So the main component of this is the hip movement. As we move our hips left or right, up or down, it'll actually influence the direction and the point of aim of the weapon. So I'll speak through this slowly. Now, as we aim at the target here, I can see that I'm slightly right of the target. Now, a mistake would be to force the rifle over because it's going to fatigue muscle groups and also be an inconsistent method. It's going to naturally keep pulling back to the right. So what I want to do is actually shift my hips to the right. And as we can see, that brings the rifle and the point of aim onto target. Now, if I find myself aiming to the left, it's a simple solution. I move my hips to the left, and it brings the point of aim back towards the right. The same goes for vertical movement. So if I find myself aiming up, I want to bring my hips forward. And that's going to bring the barrel and point of aim down. And vice versa, if I'm aiming too low, I bring my hips back a little bit. And that's pivoting the weapon up to face the target again. So just remember, with natural alignment, we want to move our hips to then influence the weapon and pivot so it naturally points to the target, and we're not putting any undue physical effort into where the weapon's pointing. Go and press down on the right hand side there, practice this skill, and then come back for the next lesson.
Lesson 3, breathing.
Hi guys, and welcome back. So I've just spoken about building a stable firing position and also naturally aligning a weapon to the target. What we're going to go on with now is a breathing cycle and how that's the second component of natural alignment. So there's two schools of thought around breathing, and that is shooting on an empty lung and shooting on a full lung. Keeping in mind when we breathe, it actually changes the shape of our body. I personally like to fire on an empty lung. The way I imagine it is an empty or flat tire. It provides a larger contact pad with the ground. Also, with a full lung, there's a potential to rock or balloon because our chest is full of air, and we almost we lose a little bit of stability in our upper body, and we can also provide a bit of inconsistency in the way we fire. The third point is it's also a lot easier to achieve a consistent point of firing or engagement on that empty lung. It's much harder to actually pick that we've inhaled the same amount of air every single time. So that being said, we'll go through those breathing cycles now. Taking the weapon up, as we have, with the building that stable firing position, maintaining those 4 points of contact. What we'll do now is we'll see is, as I breathe in, the weapon naturally points down, and as I breathe out, the weapon comes back up. And that's what we want to see. So as we breathe in and we breathe out, you can see that the point of aim comes back up. As I spoke about, you want to have that pause. So we breathe in, we breathe out, and pause, 2, 3, before we fire. That way we're going to consistently engage at the same point of our breathing cycle. In, out, pause, 2, 3, engage.
Lesson 4, test and adjust procedure.
And now what we're going to do is test and adjust. This test and adjust procedure is a confirmation that we have achieved true natural alignment of the weapon to the target. The reason we do this is because it eliminates any small micro movements we might make or any subconscious muscling of the weapon that we might have to try and keep our weapon aiming at the target. To do this, we'll take the weapon up, we'll close our eyes, we'll go through a full breathing cycle, being 2 full breaths, and then we'll open our eyes and see what the result is. This gives us a true and accurate representation of our alignment. So that's what we'll do now. Take the weapon up, build our position. Now I'm going to close my eyes and go through our breathing cycle. As you can see, I'm way off to the right of that target. So as we learn with natural alignment, I'm going to move my hips to the right. That's going to bring the point of aim to the left. We'll go through this procedure again. And we can see we're on target, we're slightly high. So we'll bring our hips slightly forward, and this should be where we want to aim. We'll test and adjust once more. Now we can see we're achieving that natural alignment to the target where we're no longer muscling the weapon to make those bold movements, and we'll achieve much more accurate groups this way.
Lesson 5, trigger manipulation.
Now it's time to squeeze that trigger and fire that shot. Now the important thing we need to remember here is whilst we built that position, we focused on those 4 points of contact. Front being your non-master hand under the foregrip of the weapon, a master hand on the pistol grip, a butt nice and firm into the shoulder pocket, and the cheek on the cheek weld. Now, the important thing to notice here is I can take my master hand off without it disrupting the position of the rifle. The important thing about that is that I can then maintain small, fine motor skills as required to pull this trigger. So trigger manipulation is broken down into 3 elements. We've got the finger placement, the controlled squeeze, and the controlled release. Finger placement. We want it to be the top middle part of that pad. So as we wrap the finger around the trigger, we want to pull back on the middle part, like so. We want to avoid wrapping our finger around or pointing. So as you can see, if we wrap our finger around, as we pull the trigger back, it's potential to influence the direction of the barrel and influence your shot. Same goes with pointing. If you're pointing, you can influence the barrel direction as you pull the trigger. So remember, top pad, middle section of that. Controlled squeeze. What we want to do here is avoid jerking or snatching the trigger. That looks something like this, where you take the weapon up and you're making that quick, violent movement. We want to have a smooth, controlled trigger squeeze. What that looks like is an application of consistent pressure in a horizontal manner on that trigger. Taking up the pressure slowly and consistently until it naturally breaks. That's what we want. The final part, which we talked about, is controlled release. That means after you've fired that shot, having a small pause and releasing the trigger slowly and under control. That looks like this. So we've taken up the pressure, naturally breaks, we pause, and a slow release. The important part about this is it enables, or it stops us from having as much disturbance of the firer's position as possible. It also allows us to more accurately track our shot and its point of impact, and helps develop a smooth mind-muscle connection with your trigger manipulation. So I'll go through all this once more and we'll see how that looks. So we've got our 4 points of contact, stable position, going through our breathing cycle, in, out, and we're taking up that pressure, pausing and releasing. Go and have a shot at that, guys, in the practice section, and then we'll come back and we'll talk about achieving a precise and accurate group.
Lesson 6, grouping.
Hi guys, and welcome back. So now we're going to talk about grouping. What is a group? A group is at least 3 shots all fired at the same point of aim on a target. Now 3 shots will form a group, however it's ideal to shoot between 5 and 10 as it'll give us a bit more information and feedback. That's essentially what a group is. It's giving us data and feedback. It's telling us a story of what's happening through our rifle when we're shooting, and it's being represented and shown to us on the target. So when we're firing our group and we see patterns forming, it's trying to tell us certain things about what we're doing to our weapon or with our weapon that's making that outcome occur. So some of the common groups we might see would be a vertical pattern or a vertical group on the target, which means the rounds are spread up and down vertically. That's often an indication that we're firing at different points in our breathing cycle, and we're not consistently shooting on an empty lung, which will impact the vertical representation on that target. If we're seeing a horizontal pattern occur, that's likely to do with us muscling the weapon onto target, or us jerking or snatching the trigger, or having incorrect finger placement, which can also result in small barrel movements from the left to right, resulting in that horizontal spread. If we're seeing a diagonal pattern, that's likely to occur because we've got the weapon slightly canted. That means that the weapon is slightly tilted to the left or right, and we're tracking in a diagonal fashion up and down the target, which could result in diagonal spread. Now, if we're seeing a sporadic spread on the target, or a spread that we can't make a discernible pattern from, that's likely to indicate that we're incorrectly applying multiple aspects of the marksmanship principles. So if that's occurring, best to go back to the beginning and start building that position from scratch and going through all those other lessons. What do we want to see on the target in terms of spread? We want to see a group or a pattern be both precise and accurate. That means we want a small or tight group, which represents our precision, And we want that small or tight group to be at the point of aim on the target, which represents our accuracy. So we want a small, tight group at the point of on the target that we're aiming. Why do we want a small or a tight group? Essentially, if we're achieving a small or tight group of our point of aim, that's going to increase our ability to engage targets at longer distance with confidence and competency. So let's take, for example, I shoot a 4-inch group at 100 yards. That means at 200 yards, I can expect to shoot an 8-inch group, and at 300 yards, I can expect to shoot a 12-inch group. What kind of application does that have? Well, if we take into account a hunter, for example, knowing a deer's vitals are on average 8 inches, that means if I'm shooting that 4-inch group at 100 yards, I can hit that deer and confidently hit him in the vitals. At 200 yards, I'm probably on the limit of my ability to engage that deer in its vitals. And at 300 yards, well, now I'm kind of stretching my ability to engage with confidence, and I probably shouldn't be taking that shot. So in summary, what we want to be able to do is engage consistently, a small and tight group, and that'll enable us to shoot further and further out with confidence and competency. So go to the range and the open range and try and get those small groups appearing on those targets and see how far you can shoot them out.
So that one's just talking about grouping and examples of having a tight grouping and and distances too. For example, if you know that you can have a tight grouping at 100 yards, but you know at 300 yards, not so tight, knowing distances when you're going hunting, stuff like that. So yeah, that one was the last lesson, lesson 6, grouping. So now let's go to the range and see what I can do. All right, so now I'm at the range. I'm gonna use all the lessons and all the pointers that I was taught and apply them to this and just have some fun at the range. I have my zoom in and zoom out right here on my screen, so I'll definitely be using that. All right, so that was the range portion. That was a lot of fun, just plinking, having fun. That breathing technique, I could really see what he meant by taking a deep breath, and obviously it lowers your front sight. It lowers it, brings it down, and then once you exhale, it brings it back up right to that point of aim, and then you make that shot at the end of your breath. And yeah, I definitely learned a lot from these videos, so thank you, Virtual Shot, for giving me some training. All right, so a big thank you to Virtual Shot. You guys have seen them in some of my previous videos where I was shooting zombies and having all kinds of fun with the game section, but there is a training section, which I like a lot. That's really awesome, because this cuts out a lot of time spent on the range with the newbies, and I know a lot of ranges charge by the hour, so you might as well just knock this out at your home prior, get those fundamentals down, and then get to the range and then have some fun. So yeah, thank you so much to Virtual Shot. I just wanted to show you some of the training aspects. They also have a pistol aspect full of training videos, so you can learn with your pistol also. Yeah, big shout out to Mantis X with their Blackbeard. All right, so if you want more information, all links will be down below. A big thank you to Virtual Shot, and have fun at the range. Stay tuned for the next Gun Day Monday.